about fighting abortion on demand, right? I mean, fighting abortion is what Republican national conventions are all about. Every single one, every 4 years. For decades, this has been true. The fight against legal abortion, the fight against Roe versus Wade has been as much a character at every Republican convention as the fricking fracking nominee. And Donald Trump is the president who finally did it. He said he would overturn Roe versus Wade, and he did. He appointed 3 hardline, ultra-conservative, anti-abortion doctrinaire Supreme Court justices who wasted no time, in fact, in overturning Roe versus Wade. Abortion is now banned or extremely restricted in nearly half the states in the union. The Republican Party accomplished what they've been trying to do for 50 years. And at their convention this week, no mention of abortion. We have heard lots and lots of other things talked about at this convention. We have had aged former wrestlers rip off their clothes. We've had all sorts of things happen. No mention of abortion whatsoever. It is gone, totally missing. That is how politically toxic they think this issue is for them now that they have achieved their #1 goal of 50 years. They are pretending that it never happened. That said, it's still looming as large as ever, A, because it's the real politic of what people are living through in this country, but also because Trump just picked a running mate who wants a national abortion ban in all 50 states, no exceptions. He's sitting there in the family box at the RNC next to Speaker Mike Johnson, who says he wants a national 50-state abortion ban, no exceptions. Lawrence, I feel like it's the dog that didn't bark for the Republicans at this convention.
Yeah, when I was working in the Senate in the 1990s, what you saw the abortion issue doing was kind of exactly what each party needed it to do. You couldn't imagine the Republican Party without it. There was just no way they could come close to winning a national vote without it. They needed that piece in their coalition. But you know that they never, ever, ever wanted it to go away. That's what I thought on my side of it. I didn't believe George W. Bush wanted it to go away, because then what do? How do you campaign on it the way they campaigned on it? I never dreamed Reagan wanted it to go away or H.W. Bush wanted it to go away. And the Democrats were very usefully using it against them, and both sides were using it for enormous fundraising, enormous fundraising. And it just seemed like a status quo that in party dynamics served both parties. And what the Democratic Party was simply saying was preserve Roe versus Wade. So they were literally winning every single day that it was preserved. The Republican Party was saying get rid of it, but if they got rid of it, then what happens? And now you see what happens. They got rid of it, and the guy who got rid of it is afraid of talking about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, Chris.
One of the things I just note about that is that I think it's really important to understand about this issue how sincerely and zealously the people who are fighting for it believe in it, which is to say...
On both sides.
No, right. But I mean, particularly people that want to ban abortion everywhere nationwide. They could have looked at this and said, maybe we won't go after mifepristone. That's probably like a 70-30 issue. Went after mifepristone. They looked at it in Florida, and they're like, this is not... Florida doesn't want a 6-week ban. This is polling, again, 70-30. They did it. They are going to keep doing it everywhere they can across, because they genuinely believe in it. There is a political class that likes having the issue and is looking at this what are we going to do? The core grassroots of the Republican Party and the coalition believes in the project and will pursue it to the ends of the earth whenever they are in power, full stop.
But the difference is that part of the activist community was never in the room. The people that support bans that eliminate exceptions in the cases of life of the mother, that's a 7% issue.
Right.
That is unpopular among 93% of all Americans. The people who support bans that eliminate exceptions for rape and incest, that's a 90% oppose. So the people that are for those 7 to 10% issues were never at the table. They were never, even when both sides had this tension, those people were never in the room. They now run the Trump Republican Party.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I never once believed a single Republican elected official believed what they were saying about this, and that every one of their daughters who might get pregnant at age 14, every one of them would do whatever was necessary to take care of that. And John McCain is the only one who didn't understand the correct language of this that you were supposed to use. In his campaign, when he was asked what would happen if Meghan got pregnant, she was 14 years old or something at the time. And he said, well, we'd have to have a family meeting about it and figure out what to do, is basically his answer. Within 24 hours, he had to change that.
He would choose.
He had to change that to, of course, the result of the meeting was we'd figure out how to take care of the baby. But the first answer was correct, which was, of course, I don't mean the stuff that we say applies to me or my daughter.
Right.
I don't think there was a single federal elected official in Washington, certainly when I was there, who ever would have applied that to their own daughters.
And by the way, Donald Trump doesn't believe it either. I think
No,
just let's be
not for
clear.
a second
He
of his
doesn't.
life.
But
No.
what he's done is he's opened up the party, as you said, he's handed the party over to them. I remember interviewing someone from the thing called the Liberty Council back in 2004, back when I was not in the media doing some other stuff from freelancing. And I remember interviewing him for an article that I was looking to write. And he said, we're going to support the Republican Party for now. But there's going to come a time when we're going to expect them to go through with this and to fulfill their promises to us. And for now, we're with George W. Bush. But if we don't get what we want at a certain point, we're going to withdraw our support. And so the activists very much, they don't care if it's a 90% negative issue. They wanted it badly then. But to your point, the person that was on the ballot, George W. Bush, was at least politically savvy enough to know, well, this isn't something we really want. They didn't want to catch the car, but now they've caught it, and now they have to actually deal with the ramifications for it in this real electoral process right now, and it is devastating. It is why they didn't get a red wave in 2020.
And I would say the one thing that's interesting about this, I think, for the Democratic Party and how they message and do politics around this, is that it's really, this is one of those, here's Melania Trump, the former First Lady. We were noting earlier, she hasn't been seen with her husband in any circumstances, let alone at political events, for a very, very, very long time since they left the White House. So it's very unusual that she's here for this event, this entrance into the hall, obviously a real moment for the Trump family and for the RNC. On the abortion issue, though, the dynamic that you're describing, Joy, means that the Democrats, when they talk about abortion rights, just need to talk about what happens when Republicans get power.
Yeah.
It's not personal.
Right.
It's not about a personal Republican, an individual Republican politician who has an individual stance that they're going to make an issue out of.
Right.
I'm sorry, it's the Republican-controlled Supreme Court in Alabama. They're going to ban IVF. It's the Republican-controlled legislature in Idaho. They're going to try to ban birth control. It's any place Republicans have power, the Republican Party will go after abortion the easiest way, and then they'll do the hard ways, and then they'll go after fertility, and then they'll go after birth control. They're after all of it, and that's what the Republican project is.
And they won't stop at a settlement of the sort of line, which is, and Mike Johnson got asked this at an event today, we've given it back to the states, right? It is a obviously preposterous set of propositions to say this is the murdering of child, and we think child murder is fine in 20 states.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's obviously not true. And people think that first we think it's the murder of a child is pretending. And I think for politicians, a lot of it is. But there's millions of people who really believe that. Sure. And they're going to spend every second of their lives to stamp it out everywhere fully. And the only thing that will stop them is some definitive political defeat. That is all.
And by the way, this was said on the debate stage during the Republican primaries. I can't remember which candidate said it, that you can't say that it is fine to murder babies in California, but not in Mississippi.
Exactly.
So they're very clear. And the activists don't just want, this has been since I was in high school, they don't just believe that abortion is wrong. They believe that birth control is an abortifacient. They want to get rid of that. And in states like Mississippi, they want to pursue women outside the state of Mississippi. They want to be able to track women's pregnancies. They tried to float in the state of Florida that they would be able to get girls' periods tracked in high school. Like, they want to be able to constantly track women and pursue them around the country, because this is an ideological belief, and they believe they've got to stop. They think that they are heroic. Like, they actually think that they are the heroes that's stopping a form of slavery. They compare it to Dred Scott, and they are very clear that they don't care if you're in California or New York.
J.D. Vance is right there. He said that abortion is like, he says it's akin to slavery, and he has signed on to those efforts to allow attorneys general, to allow prosecutors to get women's medical records, to follow them out of state.
The serious anti-abortion vote, and I know some of those people who firmly believe abortion is murder, they're not lying. They're not like the politicians. They had a candidate in this primary, in this Republican primary, and his name was Mike Pence. They had a candidate. And I mistakenly believed that enough of those people as voters would take their belief into the primary, and Mike Pence was going to cause a problem for Donald Trump, even if Donald Trump wasn't at the debates, because Mike Pence was going to show you the crack, the opening between him and Donald Trump on this issue, and he did, and no one cared.
Correct.
They did not care.
Yeah. MSNBC anchor Stephanie Ruhle is on the floor of the RNC in Milwaukee this evening. I have no idea where. Steph, where are you and what are you seeing?
Right now, I am standing between South Dakota and Wyoming. Rachel, it's almost a night not to be believed, right? All week long, we keep hearing how things are going to be toned down and the temperature is going to tone down and unity. And then Hulk Hogan, the Hulkster, took the stage talking about criminals and scumbags, and they're going to get it when the Trumpsters show in, followed by Franklin Graham. And just moments ago, you mentioned it. It almost was like a Disney on Ice experience. Former First Lady Melania Trump made her way in, and I left out Eric Trump speaking. And what's important about Eric Trump's speech, because he really got this room fired up, he was talking all about the cost of living and inflation. And while he rattled off a whole lot of numbers where life is expensive, whether it's how much more groceries cost or your mortgage costs, what he left out was context that when Donald Trump left office, COVID was wrapping. What's amazing is he never actually talks about Operation Warp Speed, which could be a crowning jewel for him, and the fact that that's when the vaccine was developed. But in the new world of Trump, vaccine is not a positive word. I just think the word tonight, again, it was unity with a question mark last night. It's unity with a question mark again. People are fired up when they have a chance to speak. We hear fight, fight, fight. The person that got this crowd the most fired up tonight was Tucker Carlson, who was giving them all the red meat. And now, Trump being the showman that he is, the anticipation is rising and rising, and we're watching a video that's basically, the story of the boy from New York. I mean, in the video, he's got an old school picture of our own Al Sharpton. He's got Oprah in it. He is trying to tell sort of the boy from New York story, and obviously in this room, they're buying it.
Steph, let me ask you, just being in the room, the overall atmospherics, we saw a not particularly full, sometimes raucous, sometimes more crowded, sometimes less venue over the course of the week. I have to imagine that it's kind of packed to the rafters right now since we're about to get Trump's speech.
This is the night. This is the night they're fired up. I mean, they were excited before J.D. Vance, but there was kind of a lackluster response. I'll tell you, J.D. Vance compared to Tucker Carlson, this place went off for Tucker Carlson. And now they're packed in, they're bedazzled, they're dressed up, they got their cowboy hats on, they've got every sign imaginable, and they're just waiting for him to take the stage. When Melania came in, they have this thing designed, produced very much like it's a royal event, and certainly when she came in, it was as though it was the queen of the night, and there's no one talking about the fact that we haven't seen her in any political arena for months and months. Listen, Donald Trump's a showman, and this is a show.
MSNBC anchor Stephanie Ruhle for us in Milwaukee. Steph, we'll be back with you a little bit later on. We're going to squeeze in our last quick break before former president makes his acceptance speech. I've seen excerpts. You might want to get a glass of water.